I know that you are good friends with the Krafts.
Yes, I am.
And that we've gotten to talk with you before. And Bob Kraft talks all the time about how you are one of the smartest business people that he knows as well.
He's far too kind, but thank you for that compliment, Mr. Kraft. He's my mentor, my dear friend, as you know, are the Kraft family. They've been great to me.
But seriously, you are not the typical rock star or rock legend. You are a serious person who is involved in a lot of different aspects. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you see in business when it comes to the music industry and to what's happening to the American consumer right now? You must have an idea just from watching tours and watching what happens,
well,
how Americans
Bob
are
Dylan
feeling.
once said, the times they are changing.
Yeah.
You know, we're at a crossroads in the music industry, and I think initially the record companies took advantage of the consumer. The consumer then wised up to it, and instead of embracing some practices that were happening, they went after certain people and in turn lost it. And the genie's out of the bottle, as they say. But it doesn't mean that music can't be saved and the consumer can't find a consumer-friendly model that they will pay for. Ultimately, and at the bottom line of all this is, the arts are all interdependent on each other. And so those copyrights need to be protected. Music, movies, books, and art are all interdependent on each other. And for the culture to go forward, it's very important that we find a way to be able to grow that business.
The Internet has obviously disrupted protecting those copyrights. Do you think, though, that Apple and the iPod, has that been a good thing or a bad thing for the music industry?
I've gotten in a lot of trouble for commenting on this. I'm a big fan of Apple and a great admirer of Mr. Jobs and now his legacy. But in honesty, if I was able to describe and said, and only a quote was taken from a longer story, if I present you a book, a movie, or a record, I want you to hear the first track as much as I want you to hear track 11. I've worked the last year to get my new album ready. Track 11 is as important to me as the single you're going to hear on the radio. So to me, it was very important to present it as a work of art and not to sell you one song at a time. And so that was something I argued and seemingly lost the argument. But I still stand by that statement.
Because you put this all together as something you want seen as a whole, too. It's not just a track.
Most definitely. If I took out a chapter in a book, you'd feel it was incomplete. That's simple.
But can I just say one thing? I want to, we're talking about America Joe and what everyone has. Here's a guy that does all the right things. He's a family guy. He's in entertainment where all the crazy stuff goes on. He's always at his kids' events, his sporting events. He's married to the same woman. He's a great businessman. He gives back into the community. He does things that are amazing. Even in Philadelphia with the homes or the restaurant, the soul food. I mean, it's just, it's what we need business families in America to do, to connect with their communities. He does it globally as an entertainer. Someone we're very proud to have as a special friend. And we need him to be a role model. I hope more young people in entertainment follow his lead.
Oh, that's kind. Thank you.
Why don't you tell us about Soul Food? That's a really interesting
Kitchen.
The Soul Kitchen.
The Soul Kitchen. It's in Red Bank, New Jersey. We have what's called a for-purpose restaurant. It's an extension of our foundation. And we opened this restaurant after what was the housing bubble, and we have built houses. We've built 330 houses thus far. But in these times, with food insecurities, we opened a restaurant. And the idea is if any of us came, there are no prices on the menu. But a minimum donation is asked of you if you choose to just come in and pay. You're served a great 3-course meal. If you cannot afford, you're given a gift certificate if you volunteer. So we ask you to work in the kitchen or on the grounds, or if you're not able to work in our restaurant, we partner with the food bank and the medical clinic and other non-for-profits that people can get a gift certificate so they can come to our restaurant. And then the foundation covers that overhead.
Why don't we talk a little bit more about charity and where things stand right now? And Joshua, we got a chance to talk a little bit off camera before. What's happening to charities right now since the downturn in 2008? Has it been more difficult to bring funds back in?
Yeah, I think where I am at Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of people that really support us, thick or thin. A lot of, Jonathan mentioned, people from Bain have been great to us. But I know a lot of my peers in the business have, gone through some tough times, cutbacks, and so on, that have impacted their ability to serve community.
And now the national discussion, in Washington at least, has turned to ways to try and cut our national debt and our deficit. And one of the suggestions that has come up has been to streamline the tax code. And with that, there would be a lot of potential changes. What would happen to charity if the charitable donations, the discount that you get on your taxes for that, if that was stripped out, what would happen?
Well, I'm not the brightest guy in the world, Becky, but I would say this. Why would we ever discourage people that invest and create jobs, create capital, and make our economy move? Why would we ever discourage them from investing in community and supporting community? Pretty simple. I mean,
do you think it would take a huge hit for?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think I would.
Foundations?
People, whether it's my dad, my brothers, John, why would we want to discourage them by taking away the deduction from investing and making community better, using their business know-how? They've created jobs, they've created opportunity, they understand how to invest, so I'd hate to discourage that.
That's an astute point. I don't think John or myself or our family, we don't do it for the deductions. We do it for the psychic income. But I think a lot of people get started with charitable giving. Part of it is they do get a tax benefit. But the economic return from that is so great, especially in these times. What we call the social entrepreneurship, the kind of thing of the soul kitchen. I mean, that, it's like a random act of kindness. People feel good when they do that, and then they go out and do things. But it's the catalyst to get things started. I really hope, no matter what changes they make in the tax code, that they don't eliminate the charitable deduction.
Would you like to see changes in the tax code overall, though?
Yes. Personally, I think we need a value-added tax, because I think that'll cut down on consumption and incent investment and exports, and it's everywhere in the free world, I think, except for America.
That's going to make buying albums and going to concerts more expensive, though.
You know what? They'll still do it, because unique things you'll go for. You can't get by. He's not a commodity. He's a unique, special asset, just like I like to think our football team
Well, what
is.
will you do with the income tax?
We'll do with. I don't really care.
Yeah, but really? You can't have a value-added and an income tax, though, right? They've tried that in Europe, and
Well, I'm not. Whatever allows them to sell the value-added tax, they should do, because I think that would do more to help America and create. I'm about creating jobs. That's what we really need to happen. When he does his great entertainment, they're making records, they're creating activity. We need what you said right at the beginning of the show. Right. We need growth.
John, I'm not really sure how to ask this, but you see these private sector guys, and you hear about job creation, and I know you've supported Democrats, typically either Gore or Kerry. Do you see some of the way the rhetoric goes back and forth, and how uncomfortable it can be when you sort of trash the private sector or business people? How do you put all that together?
One thing I don't use is my platform on the stage to discuss my politics. If I'm involved supporting a candidate at a rally, you know what you came to see. I'm just there to get people to come to listen to the candidate.
Right.
I'd never stand on my stage and preach my politics. But I'm just all about helping community, and so if I find through my own celebrity that I can do something like our foundation, building houses and giving people, empowering people, I think that's important, and it's become a responsibility.
Artists in general are seem more concerned with the philanthropic side of things, but sometimes I think they forget that a lot of the philanthropic side comes from guys that were successful in the private sector.
Surely. But, it's not just people that are donating money. I tell you, I'd rather have people donate their time.
Sure.
That's even more
But you also want to
important.
grow the overall pie of the economy.
And bring community together, the rich and the poor and the educated and the uneducated. We can't rely on government, period. I've walked straight into the brick wall of the bureaucracy being appointed to this presidential council and realizing that frustration. Yeah. So if we, the collective we, rely on each other in community, I think that's all we've got going forward to rely on is each other.
I think the greatest thing about what John does, a lot of artists give their time and their celebrity, like he said, and they think that's giving back, and that is, it's part of it. But John's been fortunate And so Jon gives his money, too. And I think when you combine the money with the time and the articulate way that he speaks, he really is a leader, not just for people who are his fan base, but for anybody who's been fortunate enough in this country. Too many people in his position say, I'll show up at your event, send me a limo, send me a jet.
Right.
And he does the, no, but and you know, and it's true. And so he doesn't talk about it, so that's why we're here to talk about it. And on top of it, when he says he doesn't preach politics, a good friend of mine went to see Roger Waters the other night. He loves The Wall. He said, I had to leave in the middle. The guy just kept talking politics. I was there to be entertained.
John, I was going to ask more, just a quick question on Soul Kitchen. Is this something that you could actually expand around the country?
I think so, but we've been very pragmatic in our approach and simply writing the book every day. So when it's absolutely right in our retail space that we're in now, then perhaps we'll share it with others.
How long has it been out there? And how?
Well, we've been 2 years, but we started in a church basement for a while, and then we were in a soup kitchen for a while, and there were stigmas attached to both of those places, to be perfectly blunt, until we were in a retail space, and then there was the fear of the unknown still. And when what we're realizing is through outreach and bringing people together slowly but surely, we're chipping away at that stone, and we're serving the community. So I think that we're doing the right thing.
If I could just come back to music for 1 second.
Are there 11 songs on the new?
There are.
Is the 11th? What's
it's a killer.
John, we had Sean Parker on last week. Sean Parker is behind Napster, and now it has a new product, but also behind Spotify, which is sort of changing the music.
Yeah.
Is there a model out there that you've seen that you say, okay, this is the future of the music business, that is economical, that is going to work? Is there something on the horizon that
I'm not sure about any model that I would endorse. I like the idea of subscription. But I'm a purist. I know what it meant for me to put on headphones as a boy and hold that album sleeve. I was really dead set against the artwork getting to be this big on my CD and now gone. You know, album art and lyrics and the imagination really played a big part.
What will you listen to as you're leaving here? Just all but Jon Bon Jovi? Or do you have new bands that you
Sure, I listen to new and old. I'm not...
I feel like that's new.
I don't know. There are new bands that I do like a lot. And there's unsigned bands, and there's ways for kids to go about getting record deals today and breaking the model that I came up in 30 years ago. There are ways through YouTube and through independent releases, and there are ways for the next Bob Dylan to be found.
You treading a little on country at all on the new album? Is there anything close to
There's
that?
a couple songs that could cross over into that. We had an album that was influenced by Nashville. It was a #1 album, and #1 single, first rock band to ever have a #1 country single. So we've been fortunate. Our music at this point is universal, timeless, classic. I've had generations of kids and still have a #1 records.
When is the next album?
January single, March album.
John, we want
come
to
back and
you.
play it on the set.
Okay, deal.
We want to thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
I can go back to bed now.
You can. Thank you very much.
My dear friend.